So, as you know, my name is Tabias Olajuawon Wilson. I've written the book Godless Circumcisions, a remembering and recollecting of Blackness, Queerness, and Flows of Survivance. When I wrote this book, it was to put my own experience of being circumcised in particular ways, not the bodily circumcision that we often talk about and hear about in the medical field, but the circumcision of people's cultures. The feeling that when you walk into a room that your blackness is too much or too little. When you walk into the room, your gender is too large or too small, or made to be evident when you have none at all. This idea that everything that you achieve in life, every space that you come into, costs you a piece of yourself, a piece of your soul. So this book was an attempt to expose that, but also a call to a recollecting and remembering of our former selves, because the idea is that we were born whole. So I'm going to read two poems to you. One called You're Asking Me of Blackness, Black Talks Back, and the second speaks of Caitlyns Calvary in reference to Caitlyn Jenner and our racial gender politics in the United States. So this is called You're Asking Me of Freedom, Black Talks Back. It is cruel to ask us what freedom looks like when you and your forefathers have hid it for years, criminalized its presence in our own American daydreams turns nightmares, for fear that freedom may be another cruel trick of the master's dynastic rule of terrorist tripwires. It is cruel to ask us of freedom when our tongues are lashed for the pronunciation of freedom in black, brown, queer, trans, poor, and disabled mouths, sending shivers through your soul. So you take hours, suckling to feel free and strong again, because redemption rests in the inheritance of the meek. Freedom is a cruel bait to the gates of the dead, so we disavow your freedom and speak of liberation, autonomy, love, healing, and absence from racist mythologies, flows of blackness unhindered by white dams, flowing deeper than the rivers of psychoanalytic thoughts, deeper than the bosom of entrapped bodies and musty ships whipped through the Atlantic in chains of false hope. We've survived that too. Reclaimed the passes as a homeschool tutorial, and yes, we have lost some along the way. But we hold them close in memorial and we speak their names, like Trayvon Martin, Sandra Bland, Tamir Rice, Renisha McBride, Jordan Davis, Tanisha Anderson, Jamar Clark, Janisha Fonville, Eric Garner, Natasha McKenna, Ezel Ford, Sharice Francis, Walter Scott, Kendra James, and Freddie Gray. Still deeper, blackness flows from the core of the earth to the cover of the flesh in the heart of the cosmos, adorned with shooting stars undeterred by the scars of being black, gifted, and whole in America KKK. To ask us of freedom is cruel and it is curious, like breaking a man's jaw and asking why his teeth don't stand erect. We speak of liberation from the menace of spec and the prisons of spectacle. We seek to rest in the absence of white indifference and other Facebook filters unassigned to violences on bodies of color that our society co-signs for cheap oil, capitalism, and other ways to make sense of a bodies born free. But this is a reality which we refuse to let be, so here's the key. We will be free from Black death, Islamophobic bombings, native genocides. As family, we will and we must decide that the unbought won't plead for freedom. We burn, we birth, we build for liberation. Your fear is logical. So the next poem is called Caitlyns Calvary, if I can again find it. Here we are. Caitlyns Calvary, the gaze, and whiteness on fleek. No cis person can articulate the internal traumas of a person in transition, whether physically or internally, because the pain and societal dismemberment of existing in a space where your gender performance and identity are read as misplaced, because your soul won't confirm or conform to society's rules of gender sexual circumcisions required for a passport to humanity. Cis folks, my folks, these folks and many queer folks would never know the pain of the scalpel, unraveling, undoing, repasting, without consent. Notions of them, theirs, he, her, ze, they, because we, the gender conformers, have always been in line with the biological and sociological and holy union between gender, sex, sexuality, realities, performances, identities, and belonging. Despite the fact that we stay longing for a moment of communion with our real selves, ourselves, yet we succumb to fear of self and become socio-political surgeons, not doctors, just performers of surgeries on the bodies of the other, hoping to be seen and perceived as normal, beautiful, supreme. We are emotional and psychological terrorists. Vain, coloring ourselves as the conscious and concerned, while simultaneously dismembering transgressors of hegemonic gender divisions, segregations, and apartheids. But Caitlyn has a Calvary. Whiteness comes in clean sociocultural stains of difference. It disinfects the blood let from the scalpel and allows the flesh to instead become a cloth. A cleaning, cloaking cloth that leaves its covering of whiteness remaining pristine as a proof of its universal powers of redemption. It stations as a savior, and its function of black, brown colored erasures. Caitlyns Calvary comes in full force, and not all of her soldiers are born white, or right, of queer. Many are black with white swords, supremacist smiles, and wintry cold eyes that disallow them to see trans folk of color as human, at all, ever. Those gays of Caitlyns Calvary note their own redemption and their ability to receive her as human this time, as if this recognition erases their erasure of black and brown trans flesh, strangled in their presence by their essence and investments in gender normativity as an innate proclivity in all who deserve to live unbought, unbossed, and unkilled. Black gays, celebrating Caitlyn in mourning but have no time for mourning their sisters. Taja de Jesus, Penny Proud, Ty Underwood, Yasmin Vashpin, Maya Shawatsa, not to mention those who die living in open-air prisons of our internal inhumanities privileges unleashed. Will you have time in the morning to stop killing those who don't have a Calvary or whiteness on Fleek? And that's the end of that. So you can check out Godless Circumcisions on Amazon and Kindle, and I'll post upcoming talks if you check out the Kindle page. Thank you.